Hi, and welcome to the, what is it now, the 12th Leader Post Rider Rumblings video podcast.
I don't know.
We need a quicker, snappier title, but that's the best we can come up with. That was the Leader Post Philharmonic Orchestra. Once again, we were going to have the Saskatchewan-roughriders Philharmonic Orchestra, but they didn't trust the conductor. They could only play about 5 notes, and then they gave up. So
really?
That's an attempt at humor, and it
pretty
didn't work.
weak.
Where's the laugh track, Austin? Our regular to my right is the ever-diminishing Murray McCormick. He's going to fax himself to road trips the way he's going very shortly. And to my left, it's an empty chair. See John Anderson, 1980 U.S. presidential election. Very obscure joke. We have Brendan Taman from his plush estate in British Columbia via whatever the technology allows him to join us with. Brendan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm used to being in an empty chair. Remember I got fired?
Well, yeah, when was that?
It's the last time I talked to you, Murray.
Yeah, I know.
It's always nice to talk to you, I guess.
Well, some days it is. That day probably wasn't.
I must use this as a shameless opportunity to tout Brendan's column this week. An absolute wonderful piece of journalistic analysis of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and my predictions are still ahead of his, but his column is certainly ahead of mine in terms of readability lately. So, Brendan, that was awesome. Thank you.
He's making a big impact. People are talking about you, Brendan, more than you were when you were back the GM. So maybe you have a future ahead of you as a writer.
I was going to say I probably write better columns than I did GM.
Well, at least I don't think our industry is as strong as the one you left, though. But hopefully, you can find a job.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I guess it's debate is whether they are or not.
Yeah.
Well, they've shown different signs. It's
true.
You know what's weird about this team? It's a 3-3 team, and it feels somewhat like 1-5 right now. Even when they beat Ham,
I don't think it should.
It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I think as most people do, they take the offensive perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been so, fill in the word, troubling.
No, dynamic?
Yeah. But I think that the saving grace that they have is they have a very good defense, as you know. And I think when you have that going for you, you always have a chance. Now, your offense has to give you something, which you can debate whether they have lately or not. But I think there's some hope there because of their defense is so good.
But the thing is, the way the offense plays is just overshadowing everything this team does. There's all I feel are questions about how bad Brandon Bridge is, what David Watford should be in there, when Zach's coming back. It's just, that's right. It's not a 3-3 team. It feels like an 0-5 team. I don't know if anybody, 0-6 team. I don't know if anybody's ever been a GM of a team like that in a long time. But it's
when it gets to 0-9, you got to clean everybody.
Yeah, you got to go on your 0-9.
Been there, done that.
But it's true. Like, it's just the way, and it's funny because I agree. The defense. You look at last Saturday's game, they gave up 24 points in the first quarter. Arguably not all the defense's fault, but they scored on them. And people are saying the defense played pretty well. Like have you had that sort of discussion?
Well, if you look at it, one of those touchdowns was on a punt return. Yeah. And the first 2 Calgary touchdowns were after fumbles just outside the Rough Riders' 40-yard line. So on another occasion, the Riders turned over the ball. I think Calgary had the ball around the 42-43, and they went minus one on that possession before Calgary kicked that 52-yard field goal by Rennie Paredes. So it's hard to pin that one on the defense. Plus, the defense scored a touchdown, which is rather novel for this football team this year. So
not defensively, though.
Not defensively. I mean, they're almost as likely to score when they don't have the ball. 5 defensive or special teams touchdowns, 6 on offense. So I think that's one of the reasons that the talk automatically focuses on the offense. You look at the victory in Hamilton, and people were still grumbling about it. It's a very weird dynamic with this football team. They're 1 game ahead of where they were last year. They were 2-4 at the 6-game mark, but I think losing to Montreal just put people in an owly mood, and I'm not sure that's completely dissipated yet.
I think there are such high expectations for this team coming to the season, and you and I both had them. We were talking home playoff team, and to be in a position where they're going to have had a great receiving core. We talked about how
they did
for that Saturday.
Sorry.
I keep talking about that Saturday when all the cuts went through, but they look to be a whole different team than they are right now. And I think the expectations are still sort of following this team, that they expected them to be a lot better, and they haven't been that team. Brendan,
yeah, the problem is they're in the West. That's the problem.
Yes.
Heck, they'd be first place or close to it in the East.
Yeah.
Even with that offense.
you cited in your column, Brendan. I mean, the Riders' offense would be not bad in the East Division. How do you figure this?
I think they're 4 points behind Ottawa in points scored, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all relative because once you start playing Western teams, this is where you're going to find out how good you are.
So did we find out how good they are against Calgary then? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm not. I don't care who they play. Their defense is going to be good no matter who they play. I think their offense this week will get a little bit of a reprieve because Edmonton's defense is not Calgary's. Mm-hmm. So even if they started Bridge, he's going to think playing that defense against Edmonton is not as tough as Calgary, just because how good Calgary is. So I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, or train, one of the two.
At Commonwealth Stadium? It's not very often. It's a tough place for them to play, isn't it?
Well, when some guys as a GM were there, yeah. But they won last year.
It's true. They did win there, yeah. And Mike
won last year. I think we won both games in 2013, and then ever since any other years, I don't think they've won.
No.
And then last year, of course. So I'm not sold on Edmonton's defense. I'm not. And I think there's a chance for Saskatchewan to be okay in this game.
Can you really win with a defense, though? Can you ride
Ultimately,
defense?
No. Ultimately, no. I don't believe you can. You have to have some kind of offensive production somewhere.
Does the fact that Zach Collaros returning up the
I think
offensive?
that'll help big time. Yeah, I think
he really didn't light it up much. He did in the first game and a half. He didn't light it up much either. You know, he had 300 yards, 2 TDs, a couple of picks. Look, I'm rhyming off stats like you, Rob.
That's amazing.
Amazing stuff
They're
going on.
all incorrect too.
No, they aren't.
I'm just bothering you.
No.
So he's reading from a paper.
No, it's tucked away in my mind.
Uh-oh.
Well, I think this goes back to when they signed him. They paid him a few bucks to come in, not to be in a quarterback competition. That's a joke. So he's the starter. He's the guy, and they think he can carry their offense a lot better than who they have or had. So they've only had 1 game and a half to show it, or not even. So this will be a big test. And I still think Zach Collaros is a pretty good quarterback myself, and that's based on when we went against him. He gave us a lot of fits. Whether he's the same guy or not, I guess we'll know over the next, couple months.
I can ask you a question as a GM. The fact that he kept his concussion issues secret, and considering the issues now with going on with concussions and how they're supposed to be transparent, what would you do as a GM if you had your quarterback kind of didn't tell anybody that he had concussion issues?
I would have a one-on-one with him going, okay, there's football and there's life, and don't ever put football ahead of life again. Mm-hmm. Basically, because the kid wants to play. I understand why he did it, but when you get into issues like this, and he's not the only one that's done this by no means.
Oh, no.
I've had guys that did that when I was there, and it's that football mentality, but it's not the smart one to take. It's very dangerous. You can't risk your health permanently. That's just, football's not that important no matter what anybody says. So I understand why he did it, but I would have implied with him since that happened that please don't do that again.
But I think what happens sometimes is people think, look, if I'm not playing, is somebody going to take my job? Look at Jason Moss in Edmonton. He goes down. Ricky Ray comes in back in 2002, and Ricky Ray ends up being the Eskimos quarterback with help from Jason Moss in 2005, mind you. You look at Drew Bledsoe gets hurt with the New England Patriots. In comes somebody named Tom Brady.
I don't mean to disagree with you on that, Rob, but Zach said he was afraid because he was a new guy. He felt the pressure to play. And that's maybe the same thing, but Zach said because he felt he had to get in on the field for this team. And because of his injury background, he was worried about that too. So there's extra pressure on him. But in Zach's credit and Chris Jones' credit, they never pressured him to play. That's one thing about this whole thing. No one pressured him to play. It was all on Zach, and he accepted the responsibility for that. So I think we should, I don't know if it's commendable, but it's recognizable.
I'm not going to crucify him for it. I think it's I've been hiding a pulled hamstring for a couple of weeks now, and I keep working, right? It's human nature.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Do you ever stop?
You ride your bike?
I did yesterday. That was a failure.
Okay.
Now it's really sore. The question I have now, if you put Zach Collaros in, but everything else stays the same, and it may not, but can is quarterbacking alone going to fix this offense? Now, if Deron Carter ends up playing receiver, that will help. That's not yet confirmed. They're down one fewer tailback, but they really didn't need 3 of them anyway. The offensive line is not awful anymore, but it's not great. Will can Zach Collaros alone be the catalyst for an offensive resurgence in a short week when he hasn't played since week 2?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, better than what they've had. How about that? I think he's better than what they had going out there, and maybe give him a chance to generate some offense. So, yes, I think.
But it's better than what we had. The greatest compliment in the world.
It's pretty, not much one, is it?
I mean, that's what Chrysula said when I proposed. She said,
like
you're better than what I had.
It's like saying your hairstyle is going to come in common style one day, maybe.
Well, ours is. A lot of people have emulated that.
Yeah.
Like, Brendan, what can you expect from this offense if it's just Collaros and everything else stays the same? What is a reasonable expectation?
Well, again, only the people that are in those walls know exactly how they go about their game plans and all that stuff. But I would have to think that if Collaros plays, the play calling is going to be a little bit adjustment. Meaning, if you see the same draw screens and all that stuff you saw Saturday night, Thursday in Edmonton with Collaros as your quarterback, I would question that significantly, because coaches in the
ran
league
the numbers
know
and
how to game plan against each other.
Of the rough. Oh, sorry, you cut
okay.
out there for a sec, Brendan. Would you mind repeating that? You went. I thought you'd been fired again. It just disappeared for about 10 seconds.
Well, I probably wasn't making sense, so that's why you cut me off.
It's our censor.
Yeah.
No,
I
I
have
was
to
saying
make sense on these podcasts. That's not requisite.
Well, with you two on it, it's not hard not to make sense. So, I was saying that I presume with Collaros coming back, the play calling is going to be adjusted accordingly, where you're going to see some variations. And when they played, I believe, against Toronto, and especially in Ottawa when Zach played, granted, they had a couple of picks, but the ball was going down the field. I'm not sure I've seen the ball go down the field lately in their latest games. Not much, anyway. So I don't think they'll open it up with Zach, because I believe the reality is, in my opinion, is they trust him more than what they had.
Have you ever been in that position with a quarterback?
We usually didn't have any, so no, not really. If Darian got hurt, it was the end of the world. So, we were in this in. Oh, thanks for the reminder. Seth Diggy and
Aren't you glad you joined us?
And all those eras. You guys remember those games. Mm-hmm. And you have growing pains, but it comes back to when you put your team together, you have to have a quarterback. And I think, I'm not disagreeing with them, I think they believe it's Zach Collaros, and we're going to find out. And I don't think they're wrong, personally.
I agree with you, too, because back in January, they went and got the best quarterback available. Zach Collaros.
Yeah, I thought it was a great move. I really did. Yeah. I thought, wow, they've got something going now.
And then they got into that whole competition stuff that was BS.
Can you explain that one to me?
No, I can't.
No.
Maybe it was just to keep me asking that question, who's starting? Because I do ask it. I asked that yesterday, too, who's going to start on Thursday. It's fun to bring that up again. But
I mean, there's no way.
A lot of the times, as a GM, if the coach says we're going to start our 50 grand guy and your 400 guys on the bench, either the GM's going to be gone or the coach is going to be gone, because that don't make sense.
Or both. No, that's a lot. It's all about money.
But it's what about the Jerome Messam situation? I don't want to get into all the legalities of it, but we look at it from a roster perspective. That whole tailback troika was pretty mystifying for a lot of the season. Does this impact the team? They weren't really leaning on him from a ratio perspective that much, it seems. What impact is the Messam thing going to have?
I would think, yesterday would have created some waves in the locker room just because it's such an alarming issue that came up, and then all of a sudden he's released. So their on-field product, I don't think, will be adjusted too much. Jerome's a pretty good back, but they, like you said, every third series, it seemed like he was going to go in the game. So they can adjust that easily, and they already have, I'm sure. But the dynamics amongst your team, it would cause, he's a veteran guy that has been around and knows some guys, obviously, from his background there and whatnot. But I don't think the impact will be too significant. I don't believe.
As a GM, how do you? I mean, you had to handle situations, not exactly the same, obviously, but in 2013 there were legal situations that came up. What does that do in the front office when you have to just deal with, irrespective of the specifics of the situation? What does that do internally? When, I mean, you had 3 of them to deal with that year.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to deal with as a GM, because you obviously want to do the right thing for the community and the law and all that stuff. But you have to be very, very careful. I mean, there was some pressure back in that year to get rid of those guys, or at least suspend them for a game or two, just based on the charges, which I flat out disagreed with. Because the more I got some facts brought to me, I wasn't necessarily convinced that what was going on was true. So the thing that I was trying to guard against was our locker room, because they know what went on in that incident or two. And if you start to throw guys under the bus, what are you telling your guys in that locker room? You're with them or you're not. And by throwing them under the bus, I would have, in my opinion, been telling the guys in the locker room, I'm not with you in this. I'm just going to react and knee-jerk, and, well, if it's right, it's right, and if it's wrong, too bad. But that whole scenario, engulfed my time, and Corey and Jeremy basically ran the team during those, few days. But it's a very slippery slope, because there's public pressure, and there's, people that assume what the facts are when in reality they weren't. That's always dangerous. So I've never been a guy that would take a guy and say, okay, you're guilty. Oh, you're innocent? Oh, shoot. I'm always, let's get the facts. Let's, wrongfully or rightfully, take the side that they're innocent until we know more. But some of those guys that were involved that year were a pretty important part to our success. Yeah. And they had a reputation that didn't quite line up with what happened that night. I'll just put it that way.
And what happens?
And as it proved out in the courts, the charges were dropped.
And that's, in cases, the only one of them has actually made it to court, didn't it? And that was just, okay, goodbye. The judge pretty much threw it out immediately. So what if you had bowed to public pressure? What if you taken what may have been perceived at the time as the easy way out and just said, okay, goodbye? Well, irrespective of what impact it would have had on the football team, you would have cut 3 players who were ultimately and quite resoundingly exonerated. And what kind of message does that send?
And that's what I mean. I mean, the guys in that locker room knew what was going on that night. And if I just did that, they're going to look at you as a GM running your football team going, what is this guy all about? He's not with us. He's against us. And you have to be, to a degree, as a GM and as a head coach at times. But I always believe in trying to do the right thing with the facts that you can gather. And the facts that we gathered took 4 or 5 days to get. But to base your decision on 24 hours of facts, I probably would have suspended them. But there was way more going on behind the scenes. But it puts you in a difficult spot, and I think you're seeing that in pro sports quite a bit, not in just the CFL. But
when it comes
it's tricky.
When it comes to the Jerome Metz, there's a zero tolerance level for the CFL for this kind of thing, with Johnny Manziel and Justin Cox and Euclid Cummings and all these guys. So
where's Duron Carter fit into that?
Mm-hmm.
Where's Duron Carter fit into that?
Sorry.
Well, I don't know, where does dumb fit into legality?
Well, obviously he doesn't, because they viewed it that it's not as serious as charge as these other ones, right?
Yeah, and it isn't. I don't think it is.
But he's guilty too. What happens if these kids aren't guilty?
I know, that's the question we're going to say. Like my wife asked us, what happens if he's not guilty? What happens if this is thrown out of court?
And he's not the only one in the league lately that's done this.
Yeah.
So you look at different standards throughout sport. I mean, Roberto Osuna gets suspended for 75 games, a pretty stiff sentence, but it's not like he's dumped outright, ends up being traded. But different sports seem to have different standards, and I'm just waiting for the first high-profile situation like this where the courts ultimately say no. That's if they throw out a case such as this, when a player's already been cut. Well, what recourse does he have, if any? What recourse does the Players Association have? What do they pursue? There's all sorts of tentacles for this if you automatically, dismiss somebody on the basis of a charge of an allegation.
Yeah, and that's a very slippery slope they're going down, because there's issues that have happened in the league both on the field and off, that you got to be consistent with how you do stuff. That's for sure.
Can I just ask Brendan a little later? What are you doing now, Brendan? People, now
I'm
we know
reading
you're
your
a
articles.
columnist. Yeah, we
I'm
know
reading
you
your
are. Yeah.
articles.
Well, thank you. Glad somebody is. Are you still buying a paper though every now and again?
Does home delivery reach it out there?
People are impressed with your columns, and it's just, what does he do now? Sit at home and write these columns for a week, or what is Brendan Taman doing in 2018?
What I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is nobody's business.
So that tells me you're not doing much. If you're shooting at golf every day.
No, I don't actually. I should, because it's right behind me. I'm just, I've been helping a few people on the side do a few things, more like a consulting thing with certain aspects of things. I haven't done a lot, to be honest with you, but I've poked around with maybe getting back in it, but nothing's happened yet. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm just taking it easy and semi-retired. Put it to you that way.
Good for you. I wish.
Yeah,
like that.
for now.
For now, yeah.
Well, we're so glad that you've dipped into your semi-retirement to write for us. It's been I know it's been very well received, and we've.
Well, that's good. Like I said in the article, 35 people like it. That's good to know.
Well, you said 30. Was it 34?
I went up one today. My sister read it. I keep track.
It's always nice when the relatives pay attention. I was in a situation a few years ago where I used to do this nightly. Every Monday I did this thing on Global, and so I went on there Monday night, and afterwards I asked my wife what she thought of it, and she says, "I don't know. I was watching Everybody Loves Raymond." So I wasn't even her sportscaster of the moment or sports writer of the moment. Ray Romano or whatever he was in the show.
Well, that reminds me, the caliber of the CFL games hopefully comes up a little bit, because some of them this year have been pretty blah.
Yeah. Last week was just dud.
Yeah.
The Calgary Rider game had its moments, but there's just not a lot of entertainment value to be extracted from it.
No.
Unlike this podcast.
Yeah, this is dynamic. Well, we solved our technological hurdles, which is crucial.
That's a good,
so.
It must be the BC air in the mountains, I'm guessing.
That's true, yeah.
Are you a naturist now?
I feed deer now and then, if that counts.
Like, don't you have them in your backyard or something?
Yeah, they stroll through at night, going through my backyard. They checking around. They'll watch the CFL game if it's on TV, because they can see the TV from a window. So they'll sit down there and chew. They're actually quite an interesting animal. It's pretty neat to see.
I'll throw you a quick scouting question here. What did they do to stop Mike Riley? Is he harder than Jeremiah Mazzoli when they faced him?
Well, he's very good, but if anybody knows him, I think it's Chris Jones, right? So if they got the people behind, to me it's pressure in secondary, right? And if they get coverage, I think their D line will be fine. I wouldn't expect him to light them up. I really wouldn't.
So 400 yards against Montreal isn't a harbinger of what they're going to do against the Rough Riders?
They have a tendency to throw it a lot. So just on average of plays that they run, they're probably going to get 250 to 3 passing. But, you go back to last year's game, right, in Edmonton, and Saskatchewan just smothered them. Whether they can or not, that's going to be the test, right?
Yeah. Great. Well, that's it for week 12, I believe. I always lose count. I don't even think the first.
How are you in week 12 when there's only been 7 weeks of football?
We started this in the preseason.
I have no idea how we're in week 12. I just go along and I just assume
have you lost
Rob
count,
has the numbers
Rob,
right.
by chance?
Well, it's either 12 or 13. That debate has come up in rider history.
Every podcast counts, and one thing we can do is
everyone counts, Murray.
Yes.
Is that the ones that you're in or not?
The ones I'm in don't count. That's why I don't have any numbers.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting Sorry, Brendan?
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
I'm getting the wrap it up sign from Austin Davis, so I will obediently wrap it up. Brendan Taman. Brendan, thank you so much for being with us and for your columns every week. It's been a gas.
It's been wonderful.
Enjoy
Brendan.
Edmonton, Murray. Have some good food, as I know you will.
Oh, good idea. I'm going to try it. I was thinking of a couple of good restaurants I got to hit.
Murray, thank you so much for putting up with my incompetence today. I'm Rob Vanstone, I think, and we'll do this again next week, I think. Take care.